Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Wednesday, February 6th. Is that right? I'm reading the wrong button. Sorry. It's not February 6th anymore. Man. I'm starting off banner night so far. I'm going to start with the Wednesday, March 20th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Commissioner Gower to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Moving on our agenda, Michelle, can we get roll call, please?
Okay. Britton Griffith is absent. Peter Gower. Here. Ed Hawkins.
Here.
John Marshall.
Here.
Paul Olivas.
Here.
Kevin Weisky.
Here.
Mark Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next up is public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for any general public comment. I do have one requested form to speak form on this item. For those of you who want to make a comment on any of the other items, we will open that public comment at the time and make sure you fill one of these out with Michelle. So under this item, I have a request to speak from Tammy Holt still. Welcome back. We missed you last time.
Hello, Tammy Holtstill, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. For the record, do I look tan? Believe me, getting off that ship when it hit the dock was sad. But coming back here and watching and stepping off to the side, I was able to really decompress and watch what had been happening. I was far away, but I wasn't too far away. One of the things that I would like to bring to your attention is the other night, Prado Ranch had a meet and greet for the residents trying to win them over. And one of your council was there and made the comment that development needs to be done to fix the infrastructure. If development needs to be done to fix the infrastructure, what happened to the development that has already been done, and why are we in the mess or water we're in? That's going to be my question from now on. Development does not fix past infrastructure. It only fixes the current moment. There's got to be a change in how things are approved, how things are done, and how development is done. We need to change it. And it wasn't being a good neighbor when you look at what she was saying and how she was saying it. So we need to have a change. I know that some council has changed, but there's still some differences out there, and we need to get across those barriers, and we need to fix this between Washoe County and City of Reno. And it's time that they work together, because that Lemon Valley sewer plant flooded. Water right now is higher than it was in 2017. Yes, for the most part, most homes are not in the water because of the HESCO barriers. However, all across Pompey and Shane, those homes flooded. Nothing was done to protect them. Nobody stepped up to say, hey, let's put something here. They may be Washoe County residents, but 2.5 million gallons of effluent a day going into that lake by the City of Reno. You might have thought about stepping up to the plate to help those people. And maybe it's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, do we have any more requests to speak forms on this item?
Not on this item.
Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment under the general public comment item? Seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the February 6th. There's where I got the February 6th from. February 6th Planning Commission meeting.
Commissioner Weisky, so moved.
Commissioner Hawkins, second.
I think I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Next on our agenda, item number 5, City Council Liaison Reports. I'll wait for Claudia for a moment. Oh, wait, there we go. There she is. Good evening.
Hello, how are you doing this evening? I'm thanking you for all being here and all the work that you do and all the hours you put into this. It's not easy, and I appreciate you all. I really don't have a whole lot to say. I just want you to know that I am paying attention to you and wanted to pop in and say hello, and I do watch the meetings like our former liaison did. And I think it's important to know that each one of you really take your job seriously. And I just want to say thank you. I don't think you get enough appreciation and thanks for what you do. So that's about it. If there's something that you would like to ask or questions that you have, I'm here.
Commissioners, any questions for our liaison tonight? I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Appreciate
Keep up the
the
good work.
compliments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll move on to item number 6, presentation and discussion regarding the proposed amendments to the downtown streetscape design manual.
Claudia Hansen, Planning Manager. Those were handed out to you tonight. I've been informed that we're not having a presentation tonight, and for you to just review the proposal, and you can submit comments to through Michelle.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much. Okay, item number 7, presentation and discussion on the progress of the update to the Reno Municipal Code, Title 18.
Good evening, Commissioners. Arlo Stockham, Community Development Department Director. Thanks for your time this evening. Actually, a typo on the agenda. It's supposed to be an update on the process, although we can talk about progress as well. Just have a fairly short presentation, a little bit of recap of where you've been, and a little more detail on a suggestion for the process moving forward. As I'm sure you've seen, just wanted to repeat, the high-level priorities of the master plan are the focus of this zoning code update, implementing the master plan and making the development code easier to use, more predictable, more transparent, just a cleaner document overall. So we'll be doing that. I don't think there's a whole lot of controversy on those topics. In terms of where we are in the process, we're in that step 2, right in the middle of code drafting. We've already done the master plan. I watched, before I started here, your joint workshop and reviewed the code assessment report and attended some of the TAC meetings. And now the codes are being drafted, and then ultimately we're going to have 3 modules of codes coming out in phases for review and revision, and then a consolidated draft next year, early next year. The meat of what we wanted to present is a little bit of additional discussion at high level that we're suggesting occur while the ordinances are being drafted by staff and by Clarion back in Colorado. The purpose for this process that highlighted there is the policy details, is really that there are a lot of policies in the master plan. Some of them are very prescriptive and give pretty clear direction as to what the code should say, but some of them are quite broad and could be implemented in a number of different ways. And we all got together and felt it would be beneficial to have more of a dialogue with the community, with the Planning Commission, with the City Council, at the high level as to the general direction that the Code of Ordinances should take. There's some potentially very controversial issues, and we'd like a real participatory process on where the city decides to go on some of those topics. These are just examples, but policies speaking to additional complementary neighborhood uses. It's a very sensitive topic. What are those complementary uses? What sort of process could be used to establish them, et cetera? As we started getting into the potential consolidation of different districts, you get into details where some standards may need to be changed in some areas. So we're hoping to float basically an outline of what we're looking at putting in code, bring that forward for a community discussion, bring it forward for a planning commission discussion, a city council discussion, basically have a gut check on, is what we're doing going in the right direction? Is it consistent with where you all want us to go on some of these hot topics? Floodplain development is another one. Procedurally, are we going to do some adjustments to the development review process or various requirements changing? Those topics have all been discussed, and we're hoping to flesh that out in a little more detail as code is being drafted, so that when a draft code hits the streets here in a few months, it's hopefully close to what is desired in the end, and we'll be through some of the kind of sweeping big picture debates, or at least have that discussion initiated. So in terms of the process we're suggesting moving forward, what we're calling these foundational topics, it would probably look like a series of discussions roughly once a month at the Planning Commission, at the Council. We'll be doing our outreach during that process, where we, in an organized fashion, bring forward topics for discussion, the kind of the big issues that we're bumping into. Initially, we're going to focus on the zoning uses, and probably 2 meetings at least on that, maybe one talking about mixed use in non-residential areas and those topics, maybe another one focusing on neighborhoods, neighborhood planning, different uses in neighborhoods, potentially new design standards, those types of topics. And then as that's occurring, code is being drafted, but if we get direction to kind of do something a little different, we'll be able to wrap that into our staff review of the initial code and have the initial draft code for public review address those issues consistent with what we heard through this process. A lot of different forms of citizen engagement will occur throughout this process. I think you've seen this slide before. It'll be targeted to the task at hand, probably more general on these big picture topics, and deeper dives when we get into more specifics. But for anyone in the audience here or watching on TV, we want participation. We know it's not always convenient, but don't at all hesitate to call myself or Claudia or anyone on her team, or Callie, or really our whole department's working on this in one form or another. And we want to make sure it's as close as possible to addressing the desires of the community, as diverse as they may be, and working through topics where there's controversy, and hopefully coming to solutions that work for most people as well as possible. So in terms of what you'll see at the Planning Commission under this process is the bite-sized pieces that I talked about earlier, probably starting with the non-residential zoning issues. That input will inform the draft code. Then we'll be bringing forward draft code modules for another round of public input and discussion and revision before a consolidated draft, and ultimately adoption of the plan in roughly 14 months from now. In terms of what we're asking from you tonight, it's not an action item, but if you have input for us on the process we're discussing here, we'd love to hear that. I think the preliminary plan is to come forward at your second meeting each month, which I understand is less packed with development cases. That could be done at the end of the hearings to keep everyone from having to listen to these detailed discussions. Or if you preferred to set a dedicated time or an early meeting start or something like that, we can tailor this to your desires. Really, from my perspective, the more involvement, the better, but I'm certainly aware of how busy everyone is and how much you have on your regular agendas. So we could certainly do this all in-house and not do these steps while code is being drafted. But I've really found through my career that if we do some additional and really do additional engagement and make a strong effort to try to address and resolve issues of concern earlier in the process, it works out a lot better later in the process. So that's kind of a synopsis of what we're thinking at the staff level. Probably roughly 6 meetings to get through these high-level topics. Code drafting will be occurring simultaneously, so this shouldn't delay the process at all. It's just kind of some additional outreach and additional definition to the outreach that's been envisioned to date. With that, I'll wrap it up and open it up for any questions or discussion.
Okay, thank you, Arlo. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Arlo, I just, I know I shared this with you privately, but I thought I would share it with you to maybe generate some conversation or agreement, disagreement from my fellow commissioners, that going through Reimagine Reno, one of the things that was very positive was when staff broke down the progress into smaller modules, and then sat down with a couple of us and went through the details and had one-on-one kind of education, discussion, question and answer. And then when it was brought back to the public forum, then we would introduce our questions and get that information out on record. And I thought that was very helpful. So.
Sounds great to me. We're more than happy. Like I said, the more participation, the better from our perspective.
Thank you, Commissioner. Additional comments? Commissioner Gower.
Commissioner Gower, I would just echo the effectiveness of that process that we went through with the master plan. I thought that was good, not only with the Planning Commission, but the process that staff went through, and, you know, the forward public-facing process I thought was very effective.
Agree. Additional comments? No, I think I would echo that as well. I think, obviously, you know, in looking at coming before us, and we certainly have a lot of different exciting topics that people want to hear about, and this may not necessarily be one of them. So I think having some of those preliminary meetings would allow us to maybe not have the full-length discussion and be able to fit it into some of our meetings a little more effectively, rather than waiting and trying to schedule a time to do it. So I guess I would concur that maybe if we can schedule some individual meetings beforehand, so that the presentation at this, the standard meeting would be a little bit more streamlined with respect to the fact that we would have had an opportunity to kind of weigh in on it at that time. So.
Sounds very good. Happy to do that. Just to clarify, is it the sense of the group that you would still like to see these kind of interim updates, maybe on a monthly basis? I'm hearing it should be at more of a high level with some additional offline discussions. Or would you rather us, you know, work in-house and have discussions and not appear before you more till we have codes?
I would guess let my commissioners speak to that first. Commissioner Weisky.
I think that the frequent updates are good, and the reason they're good here in Chambers is because before, when we saw it streamlined for the planning commissioners, it still gave the public an opportunity and time during our meeting without going into 8 or 9 hour meetings that start at 6 at night. It gives the public an opportunity to voice their opinion also as this progress is moving forward. So I would like to see both, please.
Commissioner Marshall.
I would like to emphasize that, but I also think, Arlo, to the extent that you'd not assume a great familiarity with the issue, but you present, as you present that, you educate us at the same time as what we're really talking about. So I know you're very good at distilling the, you know, the key issue that we're having to deal with. I would very much appreciate that, just because, you know, as a lawyer instead of a planner or an architect, I could use as much background as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would agree. I think coming to us on a frequent basis is a positive thing all the way across the board. So I would plan on doing that, just as you had kind of indicated.
Fantastic. Well, as we work through this, and it'll probably start in the pretty near future, we'll schedule some discussions. Don't anyone hesitate to just contact me if you want to get in our ears, or Claudia, or anyone else on the team. And we'll plan to be here roughly monthly and try to keep the agenda item to maybe an hour or two, kind of that level of detail, if that sounds good.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Look forward to
Appreciate
the
it.
process.
All right. Okay, moving on, start our public hearings this evening. Start with item 8.1, which is case number LDC 19-00032, RHP Mechanical Systems. Start with a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening, Chairman Johnson, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you for your great service to the City of Reno, Nevada, and the county. I'm here to talk about fence variance we have put in for an application, and I have a map I'm going to put up.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Eric Scolari, RHP Mechanical. I don't know if you received a packet, but we are requesting a variance on this section. Let me move this right here. On this section here, there's an adjacent dock, which I will show a picture of, that's needs to be protected. We're requesting a 16-foot tall fence there, and the reason we're requesting that is there's a dock that has an unprotected side. We have a letter from OSHA that I'll put up in a minute. What'll happen is if we build a 6-foot tall fence there, we run the risk of somebody tipping over equipment or people falling into our property that we're currently leasing from the city. Those bonds come up in 2020. We have some desire to acquire that property and expand it, and additionally down towards the back of the Spice House over there. So the issue is, when you have a neighbor, and it's a little out of focus, with a car on the front of a forklift, you can see the dock there. The reason I came up with a 16-foot tall fence height is that's about the top of their door that you're looking at there to the left of the blue forklift. This will protect them from falling into our property and people being impaled on that property. This is the letter from OSHA. I had them come down and take a look at the walking working services. I'm also a qualified OSHA instructor, so when you're talking about a regulation, you're talking about protecting people, it always falls back to the general duty clause when there isn't specific regulation that applies to an instance like this. So I have a letter from them, and it should be a part of the packet that you all received. Additionally, it was brought to my attention that this area in yellow right here where Quincy dead ends, that is considered, that fence height is to be at 4.5 feet. Every fence in this neighborhood is 6 foot tall with a 1 foot barbed wire. There's no way that we will be able to protect our equipment, materials, vehicles, all the things we store in here. This fence here that's inside, we would remove. A little history on this property. Running through the alley here is an abandoned railroad spur. The building that we have right here was an old ice house storage building, and if you're a native Nevada, Reno, there was ice storage down there. It's abandoned spur that's down there. We would remove that fence and build a 6 foot tall slatted fence with 1 foot barbed wire through the yellow all the way over to the corner of the property we're currently leasing. That's about all I have. I want to open it up to all of you, and there's familiar faces in here for any questions that you might have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll get a presentation from staff, and then we'll
Okay.
call you back up with any questions that you
Perfect.
have.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yep.
Just for the public comment portion of this, I have Dinah Ladd, Rena Shaw, and Matthew Potts all put in to comment on this case, but I'm thinking you might want the next case. That's true. Okay. So is that true on all three of you? Yes. I see 2 nods, 3 nods. Okay, I'm going to change the case number. That's all I had. Thank you.
And before we have a presentation from staff, I want to turn it over to Commissioner Weisky for a moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this item as my company has active contracts with Ray Heating Products, and we don't want any appearance of collusion going on. So call me when you want me to come back.
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, now we'll move on to presentation from staff. Anne Marie, welcome for your first, is this your first presentation in front of us?
It sure is. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay,
For the record, this is Anne Marie Lane, Assistant Planner for the City of Reno. Glad I didn't say Valdez. I put Valdez down here. I'm not in Valdez anymore. Where am I? It's for the City of Reno. Delighted to be here. This first slide shows the subject site. It's south of 4th Street at the terminus of Quincy and Sutro. The zoning for the subject site is mixed use within the East 4th Street Transit Corridor. And the applicant has requested a variance to increase the allowable fence height from 6 feet to between 7 and 16 feet tall. As the applicant indicated, there is a ramp adjacent on the northern portion of the boundary line, and the applicant is leasing this property from the City of Reno. This image shows that that ramp is encroaching on the north boundary line of the subject site. I'd like to briefly go over the findings for this review. Finding A for a variance states that the property is characterized by an extraordinary or exceptional situation or condition. Staff could not make finding A the condition of the adjacent parcel or the fact that the ramp exists or was constructed in a manner which does not conform with Reno Municipal Code setback standards cannot be used for a basis for granting a variance. Finding B, the strict application of the regulation would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulty twos or exceptional and undue hardships upon the owner of the property. Staff could not make finding B. Staff has concluded that it is not the strict application of the fence height regulation that is resulting in practical difficulties to the applicant, but rather the encroachment of the adjacent property owner's ramp that is resulting in practical difficulties. And staff fails to find a nexus between finding B and the request for a 16-foot height fence. Finding C, granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to property or improvements in the vicinity. Staff is concerned that a 16-foot height fence could have negative impacts on the use of the property for the adjacent landowner by blocking light, airflow, and or views. Staff is also concerned that the fence could obscure the vision of the drivers on Quincy Street and therefore cannot make finding C. Finding D, the proposed variance is consistent with the intent and the purpose of the title. The intent and purpose of the mixed-use E4TC zoning district is to promote high-intensity mixed-use development in a designated transit-oriented development corridor. Staff fails to make finding D as building a 16-foot fence height between parcels does not promote high-intensity mixed-use development in a transit corridor. As findings A and D were not met, staff cannot support the variance. I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time, and I'd like to thank the commission for your time.
thank you, Anne Marie. We'll call you back up with questions.
Great, thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Before I open it up for public comment, I'd like to ask commissioners for disclosure, starting with Commissioner Olivas.
Commissioner Olivas, I visited the site.
Commissioner Marshall, no disclosures.
Commissioner Johnson, I visited the site.
Commissioner Gower, no disclosures.
Commissioner Hawkins visited the site.
Okay, thank you. With that, is there anyone who opened up for public comment? Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will close public comment, bring it back to the commission for questions. Who'd like to get us started? Anyone? Comments? Motion? Commissioner Gower? Anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for the applicant, please. So understanding the request for the 16-foot tall fence relative to the potential hazard that's there with the vehicles potentially falling off the ramp. Why did you land at that 16-foot high fence? I know you talked about the height of the door, but why from 6 feet to 16, and why not? Why wouldn't 6 feet do the trick, I guess?
6 foot, so the dock that's there, when we're talking about the encroachment, the property line runs through the middle of that dock when the survey was done. So it'll be adjusted to just on the inside of that dock, butted up to that dock. I came up with that because that's about the height they could have their forklift extended all the way up in that area. If you looked at their door, I shot that height with a laser. That's a potential that they could be, and if something happened, it would protect it from falling into and over the fence.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question for staff. The condition of the ownership status of the property, how does that play into this request, with the city being, as I understand it, the legal owner and the applicant being just leasing the property? How does that work with submitting and, being potentially granted a variance on a property that they don't own?
It is my understanding, Commissioners, that the city of Reno signed off on allowing the applicant to apply for the variance, but that does not in any way saying that the city itself is applying for the variance. And I might refer to Mrs. Hanson.
Claudia Hanson, Planning Manager, that's correct. So as the owner, we do authorize the application, but that doesn't endorse the project from the side of the city of Reno.
So what happens if just hypothetically, if the variance were granted and there was the opportunity to construct a 16-foot tall fence, it would be at the discretion of the applicant, the one who's leasing the property, or what would be the role of the city of Reno in that case?
We would still be the owner, so we would, they're allowed to do a variety of construction project. I'm not sure the terms of the lease on the property, but I'm sure it outlines what can and cannot be done on there. So at the time, our property manager or public works director, whoever signed it, was okay that this would still be in compliance with what's allowed to construct a fence, but they would defer to community development to determine the height and location. Should that answered your question?
It does. Okay. And I guess the follow-up to that is, does the city of Reno perceive that there's a safety concern on the property that warrants a fence as the property owner?
The city has not determined that.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Marshall.
Just, Claudia, didn't they, city actually, I just want to clarify your answer. The city concluded that there was no hazardous condition, or that did I read that?
That's correct. We did not determine one way or the other.
One way or the other?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And Marie, how long has the existing condition been there?
The existing ramp,
I assume this is a long-standing condition.
my understanding is that this property dates back to railroad time, so I don't have an exact a date for you. I could get that answer for you.
Do we know when the ramp was built? It seems like the ramp is the applicant's major concern.
I did do a thorough research on finding a building permit for the building or the ramp, and I did not find any information on that.
Does the city have any records of any accident or any issue between we're assuming that the city is the property owner, so it might have some records of whether or not there was actually any accident in the past coming off the ramp?
Not in the research that I pursued.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, additional questions? Commissioner Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For staff, Are we any more, how does this change the liability for the city of Reno regardless if the fence goes up or it's denied? How does that affect us?
I'll go ahead and jump in. So before you tonight is a variance to increase the height to 16 feet. And all we do is review the application for that request. There might be another height or another design that could potentially provide an increased level of safety on the site. However, we just review what the application is that comes before us. We don't redesign the project for the applicant.
Okay.
So I don't think the variance is, there's no proof or information or research showing that 16 feet will make this a safe site. We don't have any of that before
Okay,
us.
thank you.
Emery, question for you. So am I understanding right, the current property line now bisects the ramp?
That's correct.
Okay, so what is, in a situation like this, I'm understanding that the property line needs to be adjusted in order for this lease to move forward, to move it off of the ramp? Is that the understanding that I have here?
In discussions with the City of Reno property manager, at the time when this parcel is subject to sale, they will pursue a boundary line adjustment to account for that. But the property manager does not want to pursue that until sale is in the works.
Okay, so if the existing adjacent property owner, which is not the city, am I understanding that right? The loading dock is not city-owned property.
Correct.
So how does the city reconcile a use that's on their property that's not theirs? I guess where that question is maybe less important. Under the current situation, would it be, because of where that is located, a fence on the property line could actually be installed in the middle of the ramp as an existing condition that has no building permit?
If the proposed fence on that property line would split or almost completely put the loading ramp onto the southern parcel, the city-owned parcel, because it is, and to clarify, the ramp is on city property, but
Okay.
it's used by the property to the north.
And the city has no desire to include or continue to have that piece of property where the ramp is? I guess if I'm backing this up, if the city currently now chose to put a fence in on that property line, would that fence go on the top of the ramp?
It could.
So that fence would then be 6 feet high above the top, or 4 feet high according to the code, on the top of that
On
ramp?
top of the ramp, yes.
And that would be acceptable because the ramp is an existing condition?
Correct, existing condition on the city's property. So it's essentially a civil dispute between the two property owners and really doesn't have much to do with the fence height.
I understand that, but I'm trying to get to the fact that there's a variance being requested for a situation, and I understand the interpretation of the extraordinary or exceptional situation or condition. I'm just trying to understand that if that property line wasn't in dispute and that was part of the property, that the fence could actually be taller than what's currently allowed because it would be on top of an existing condition. And the fact that the boundary line is being adjusted to a lower level is what is potentially bringing about the request for the variance.
With the fence down below, constructed below the ramp, yes.
Okay. All right, that answers that question. Thank you. Commissioners, additional questions? Okay, discussion or motion? Thank you, Emery.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Marshall asked to make the motion first.
Oh, he did.
so-
I didn't hear that. I'm
I
sorry.
said I was ready, but,
Oh,
based on I move based on the non-compliance with applicable findings. Sorry, I move to deny the variance as I am unable to make the following variance findings, A, B, C, and D.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Looking for a second.
Commissioner Hawkins, second. I can make, I'm Mason A, B, and C. Can't make those
Okay.
as far as the findings.
I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Other than from me, because I'm going to follow up a little bit here. I understand exactly where they're coming from on this from a safety standpoint. When I stood out there putting a 4-foot or a 6-foot fence on the inside of the ramp doesn't meet the OSHA requirements, and I can see that as an issue. However, based on the fact that there's some legal issues with the site and the way that the findings are worded, I also cannot make the findings. However, I believe that there is definitely something that the applicant and the city need to discuss here because there's an unpermitted ramp on city property that's creating a potential problem for the lease. So with that, unless there's any further discussion,
Commissioner Olivas, just a few further comments. I think that this is a tough one, certainly. I mean, with safety and there's certainly a landlord-tenant issue here. And, but I think that the other part that we always consider in variances is prior improvements, and that we can't really consider them towards the variance. And I think that makes it even tougher with that ramp being there, and that's an improvement, and that's big part of the reason why they're even requesting it.
thank you. With that, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And with that, I will ask Commissioner Weisky to return. And while he's getting seated, I will open up the next case, 8.2, case number LDC 18-00065, the Reno Gateway Business Park. And we will start with a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening. For the record, Mike Rayleigh with Rubicon Design Group, here representing the project applicant. As you recall, this project was before you previously. At that time, we requested a continuance to do some additional outreach, which we did hold a community meeting. We did some significant coordination with NDOT and made some changes to the plan that are reflected in the staff report. However, after being made aware this week of some additional concerns and emails from the public, we would like to request a postponement of this item this evening to allow us to make some additional changes to the site plan that I think will directly address the concerns that we're hearing, especially related to truck traffic in the interchange. And for that reason, we would like to hold another community meeting to present those changes that we're making prior to coming back to the Planning Commission. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but we would like to request a postponement this evening.
Okay, thank you. I have opened this up, so I'm going to get a presentation from staff, and I'm going to continue through public comment, and then we will, as a commission, consider the request and let you know. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So having heard that, I'll bring staff up for presentation.
Good evening, Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner for the record. As was mentioned by the applicant, this case was originally heard back in October 9th by the Planning Commission. At that time, there were concerns about public outreach, the NDOT connection, the on and off ramps at the NDOT, and then also the scale of that project directly related to the site and also the traffic. The applicant did at that time. They originally sent out a letter to surrounding neighborhoods. No comments were received from that, and staff did not receive any comments. They did move forward and hold a public meeting in Verdi on January 29th of this year. At that meeting, there were probably 50 to 60 people in attendance. They explained the project, went through that, took concerns. Staff, engineering, and planning was in attendance on that and did listen to those comments. Additionally, staff has received comments from NDOT in that there were several, they had several comments. The condition number 5 that was in the staff report is a new condition that was added with those conditions, that largely stating that any improvements that would have to happen at that intersection or at the off-ramps would be required by the applicant to construct those. Those could include striping, signage, lighting, and other methods of safety for that. Additionally, NDOT does have plans to improve that off-ramp. Those are adding an extra, on kind of an extra decel and ecel lanes. We do have engineering staff here tonight that can further explain that, as was in our, the application, the staff report. Those plans were as an exhibit on that. So staff is available for questions if you have any further questions on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. I will now, before opening public comment, bring it back to the Commission for disclosures. Start with Commissioner Weisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have ridden out to the site several times, and I have received dozens of emails, read every one of them, and spoke with the applicant's representative.
Commissioner Hawkins spoke with the applicant's representative. I was out there a couple of times and received quite a few emails.
Commissioner Gower, as did I.
Commissioner Johnson, as did I.
Commissioner Marshall, as did I, and also spoke with a couple of residents when I was out there looking at the site. Same disclosures, but I also spoke with a couple of the residents when I was out there visiting the site. Did you hear that?
Commissioner Olivas, I received emails and had previously visited the site and spoke with the applicant's representative.
Thank you. We do have several requests to speak forms on this item. We have some that have been marked that they would like to make a statement and some that have wished to not make a statement. So I'm going to ask Claudia to read the names and any comments from those who are not wishing to make a statement first.
Okay, so not wishing to make a statement, I'm just going to read through these so they're officially in the record, but we also have the written forms. Sure. Okay, so I'm going to be reading, and this is the stack I'm going through are the ones that do not wish to make a statement, but I believe they are all in opposition. So I'm going to read these into the record, and we will also enter the hard copy into the record. Dinah Ladd, Rena Shaw, plan for foot traffic, residential signage for vehicle traffic, bike lanes, crosswalks, increase in lanes and road span. Matthew Potts, we do not have the necessary infrastructure for this project. It will negatively affect traffic, pollution, and noise in our guest neighborhood, quiet neighborhood. If it is developed, we would need walking paths and better roads. Gideon Kaplowitz, this project must not be approved until NDOT has completed all necessary improvements to I-80 to ensure safe on-ramps at Mogul and, both east and westbound. Tom Lynch, Catherine Lynch, not right for our congested area. Access will not accommodate traffic, especially semi-trucks. And at estimated volume, bike path goes right through area, train traffic, PEDs, et cetera. Tom Van Hom, Kevin Stefan, should be located at the Tahoe Industrial Park in Fernley. Robert Stewart and Sandra Stewart, traffic impact more than significant negative noise issues, traffic safety issues, potential hazardous waste issues. Mike Miller, our small community road system is not adequate for this development, potential hazard issues with large trucks, potential safety issues with this large amount of traffic. Thank you. Fawn Dotson, I believe it would be too big a facility for our area. Nancy Slatton, traffic safety issues, property values will decline. Dennis Miller, I live at the intersection of Silver Ranch Road and the road crossing under Highway 80. Traffic traveling under Highway 80 causes extreme sound and light problems in my home. Mike Affinito. Lorna Corkery, there is already a business industrial park starting near Boomtown, right behind it towards Verdi. Why do we need another 2 miles away? Plus Mogul and the Mogul area cannot accommodate people, traffic, vehicles, huge trucks. Barb Gold, nightmare on 4th Street, nightmare for Firthorn Circle residents, nightmare for Silver Ranch Road residents, nightmare for Mogul Road. What a mess. Exit 7, both eastbound and westbound, will become dangerous for residents, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Dave and Susan Long, opposed truck traffic, altogether too dangerous environment. Concerns signage, concerns overnight truck parking, noise, jig breaks, diesel spills, OSHA issues, bad weather, traffic issues, lighting. Lynn Hetherington has a lengthy comment here. The increased traffic coming off and on the freeway will be devastating, not to mention merging off and on the freeways. Currently, merging east onto the freeway is extremely dangerous. The amount of walkers, joggers, and cyclists that travel from Mogul and Verdi down the river will be in danger due to the increased traffic and now semis, Reno Project Bike Path, and Reno Tahoe. Okay, that's just the flyer. Russell Fromhertz. This is a residential area and not a warehouse district. Roads aren't built for truck traffic. Kenneth Hull, industrial projects typically require arterial roads when next to residential. These exit 7 roadways are not. Mogul has had no services at resident request for decades. Also, additional traffic from Verdi Boomtown area homes will make it harder to get on the freeway at exit 7 on ramp east. Trucks and entering freeway at 30 miles per hour is dangerous. Also, exit 7 west has a blind spot at the Silver Ranch where traffic moving northeast from under the freeway cannot easily see the traffic. Danielle Wilkie, not functional in a residential area. My kids ride bikes and we go for walks to the river. Pollution and spills are a worry, and also freeway access is already an issue. Also, the upkeep of the cattle guards and the highway are my concern. Jim Sharkey, exit into Mogul coming from the east will be accessed because GPS will show that route. Too much traffic and pollution. Michelle Sharkey, strongly opposed the trucking warehouse danger and traffic west off ramp Silver Ranch Road, unsafe and underpass area. This area has bike pass area off Silver Ranch Road. Judith Kenyon, truck depot would be better suited to a location with retail and amenities where it would bring in money rather than a residential area where it would lower values. James Kurnian, Mogul truck depot, many better locations that would be improved by this facility. Andrea Black, the proposed business gateway park at Mogul raises significant safety concerns as a residential homeowner in Mogul. I have 3 children that often ride bikes and walk near the proposed development, and with semi-truck traffic coming in and out of the neighborhood, I am concerned about their safety. Nathan Bader, concerns over loss of open lands and access to the Truckee River. Marie Fromhertz, the exit and entrance to the freeway are poorly designed. They are not able to accommodate semis exiting and entering the freeway. Tom Spreeman, the detrimental effect of this project is to Mogul residents, not the city of Reno residents. Extremely dangerous. Entry onto I-80 East is a hazard now and will be considerably more dangerous if you put truck traffic on that entrance. Kitty Spreeman, a large trucking warehouse such as this would be a tremendous disruption to a quiet housing area such as Mogul. Number 1, noise of thousands of trucks exiting and entering I-80. Number 2, crowded traffic conditions interfering with entering and exiting the interstate of the residents in this community. Number 3, pollution, diesel fumes, dust, potential spills. This includes hazardous conditions that may affect the Truckee River. Number 4, danger of extra traffic, children biking and hikers, dog walkers that use this area for recreation. Question, wouldn't a project such as this be more suitable in an industrial area rather than a residential area? And that is all I have for the opposed, not wishing to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. Claudia does that because she pronounces the names better and can read better than I can. So, so now, and I say that as a precursor to mispronouncing all of your names when I call you up here. So please, when you come up, you'll each have 3 minutes. State your name for the record when you begin. And we will start with John Thompson, followed by Reagan Hartzell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is John Thompson. I live at 10,040 Timberwolf Drive in Mogul. My wife, who's with me today, and I moved out there in 1986. We got in on the first phase of development. We watched the whole thing fill out over the years, including Upper Mogul. Right now, there's 479 single-family residences there. And most of them have 2 or 3 cars. So I estimate probably 2,500 cars are using the freeway interchange at the moment. That doesn't include the school buses that are in and out of there all the time. It works. It's residential area. It always has been a residential area. There's a small industrial or a small storage facility out there that's appropriate for the area. The interchange has really some bad problems, and I know that NDOT can tinker with them, but they're not I don't see how they can solve them. The merge lanes are like 50 yards long and about that wide, and I can hear the wrecks from my house. I mean, there's a lot of accidents there, and with all these trucks that are proposed to come in, I can see them backing up on the freeway. I can see a school bus right behind them getting creamed by something. This is a real possibility that you have to consider, because the ramps just won't work for all of these trucks that are, if like 5 of them come at once, they're just gonna back up right onto the freeway. There's gonna be horrific accidents there. I'm really against this. The other thing that really gets me about this development is the size. This development is bigger than the Amazon warehouse out in the North Valleys. The Amazon warehouse is 603,000 square feet on 36 acres. This development, the proposal is like 650,000 square feet on 26 acres. The congestion of trucks coming and going, and we have no assurances or of what they'll be transporting. The possibility of hazardous materials is great, and it's really alarming to all of us. What what if why would you put it by the river, for crying out loud? The Reno, on one hand, they promote the river as for recreational usage, and then sticking a big industrial center like this right on the river is, from the way I see it, is absurd. There are some industrial properties in Verdi, I realize that, on the river now, but they're not sized like this. They're at least sensible. This project is way bigger than the Amazon warehouse, which is gigantic. So I know this commission has the power to effect positive change. This is not a positive change. Not a positive change at all. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Next up is Reagan Hartzell.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to talk. My name is Reagan Hartzell. I'm a 31-year resident of Mogul, and I've taught elementary school for 22 years in Reno. My big concern is we have no schools in Mogul. All the children that go to elementary school travel to Verdi in the morning and travel back east in the afternoon. Our middle school and high school students travel east in the morning and west again in the afternoon. Students that attend charters or private schools in Reno are also going to be on those roads. So we have school buses, we have teenagers in cars, we have parents driving their children, and that very much concerns me that we're going to have this traffic with semis coming in and out.
Thank you. Rick? Okay, so I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm, but I have a huge stack here. So if we're going to applaud after every one, you're going to be applauding a lot of the same things. So let's try to keep it to a minimum. I understand everybody's here for the same thing. So Rick Cooper, followed by Steve and Liz Brown.
Yes, I'm a 33-year resident of Mogul.
Could you state your name, please?
And
Please state your name at the beginning.
Rick Cooper.
Thank you.
Thank you guys tonight. This is something that should go to the Reno Industrial Park, not here. That's what it's made for out there. That's why they did that, just for that reason. Should not be approved for several reasons. It would only be 100 yards away from the houses, the closest part right there. The on-ramps are not even sufficient for cars. Okay, and the westbound on-ramp cannot be fixed. There's a bridge. Okay, and it's uphill part. It's a very bad on-ramp, even for a car. The diesel smell from the trucks idling or upwind from the houses, and that's where the wind comes from most of the time. Okay, so that wouldn't be good at all. If there is a spill, the Truckee River is only about 100 yards away on the other side, to the south. And Chalk Bluff, the water treatment plant, is only 3 miles downstream. That's where our drinking water comes from. Again, this should be at the Reno Industrial Park where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve and Liz Brown, or Steve or Liz Brown. Everybody gets 3 minutes, followed by Fred Reed.
Good evening. Thank you, Commission, for giving us an opportunity tonight. I'm Stephen Brown. My wife Liz and I moved to Mogul in 1984. And what we've seen in the last 35 years out there is a tremendous residential growth. And it's going on right now, Sunset Bluffs, Upper Mogul, and our Mogul Meadows area. And along with this residential buildup, we see families. We see moms, dads, we see children. We have a lot of school buses. Took our children to Verdi Elementary over the years, and now it takes my grandchildren. I feel that this project is just not incompatible with where we live and what we do there. It's a safety concern, like I said, with the buses and the school children. Also, we've seen some terrible wrecks over the years involving trucks coming down I-80. Mogul's in a unique spot. It's in a low place. There's a hill coming down from the east and from the west, and at night you can hear the trucks. They need to use their engine brakes to control the speed of the trucks. Slowing down a truck is one thing, but stopping one is another. And as I learned as a railroad engineer for 40 years, energy in motion tends to stay in motion. And I'm very concerned about the project, and it's my hope tonight that you share our concerns about our families and our safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Reed, followed by Lori Leonard.
I moved out to Mogul when I was a senior at UNR, July the 4th, 1970. The Canopas were still using their cows. Silva was still milking his cows. Mogul was all meadows. And then now it's an absolute vibrant community with a great church, incredible fire station. I live 10255 Mogul Road. If you come across the railroad tracks and go about a block past these trees, that's where I have 2 acres and 2 residences. I went up today and I parked at the Lincoln lookout, looked out over the property, and I just do not believe that this development can even come close to fitting in with our community. First reason is the entrance coming in from the west, from Verdi, is an absolute short shoot and a small U-turn for 18-wheelers. There's a real conversion coming underneath the freeway, coming down Mogul Road, coming down the freeway, exiting the freeway, going east, and all of the residents coming underneath the freeway, and they're growing too. The developer says that he's going to put a median on Mogul Road. I believe that's just totally impossible because the size of Mogul Road itself is absolutely at its maximum right now. I see absolutely no conversation with Union Pacific, and Union Pacific is really a part of this equation because they're just a part. The existing storage units right now are partially on the Union Pacific property. I think that's about all I've got to say, except I don't believe it fits. Take the Verdi exit, look at its size, turn around the roundy round, come back down and take the exit to the Mogul exit going east. You'll see exactly what I mean. It's totally inadequate for 18-wheelers. And there's only one entrance and one exit. How is this possible for a development this size? Thank you.
Lori Leonard, followed by Barb Fenney.
Hi there. My name is Lori Leonard.
You can move the microphone.
I will do. All right, it's not focusing. Okay, great. Hi, again, my name is Lori Leonard, and I've been a resident in Mogul for a little over 6 years. I'm a neighbor to Fred, so I too am very familiar with the danger associated with the intersection right there. As many other people have already made reference to, this is a really significant space for people to recreate. We have a lot of people walking. It also is a section that is associated with the Tahoe Pyramid Bikeway, so there's a lot of people biking. There are kids around, and it also provides some access to the public land, which is located across the river. I think we all need to really think about what type of community we want to live in. And with so many people moving to this area, our communities are growing really quickly. And a really big draw to why people are coming here is the really impressive recreational opportunities that we have. That includes the river. And in this section of town, there are somewhat limited locations in which people can access for kayaking and tubing. So we see a lot of people making use of the river in this area. Again, we also see a lot of people walking and heading up into the public land, which is for everyone. So we should have safe access to it. And on the map here, so this over
Can you bring the
Go
microphone
ahead and pull the
closer?
microphone
Oh, I
over.
can, thanks. So again, across the river here is where the Toyabe National Forest is located. And the green line, it's very faint, through here takes you to a bridge, which allows people to access that public land. Also, this picture down in the corner here is significant. This is the intersection with the on and off ramp and also where the railroad tracks are located. When you are at the base, which I'm really grateful many of you have been out to look at this, there's more and more people trying to access the river from this location, but when you're at the base on the road, you're looking up, so you can't necessarily see if there's anyone else on the other side trying to drive across. The railroad crossings are not wide enough for two vehicles to cross at the same time, so if you come up over and are not familiar with this area, you could very easily accidentally either hit another car or drive off the railroad tracks, or there's the obvious danger with the railroad in and of itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Barb Fenney, followed by Ron Kamenkow. Told you.
Hi, I'm the infamous Barb Fenney that you've all heard from numerous times. I'd like to thank you for all of your skill and for allowing us to have this communication with you. I do have a few more things to give to you, a lot of emails and some of the comments that people have written out that they asked me to give you. Could I give this to you?
They'll go to Michelle and she'll get them all
Okay,
entered
I'll do
into the
that.
record.
Okay. So I'll read fast. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Chi-Chi. I don't know if Chi-Chi is here or not. Oh, hi. I talked with Chi-Chi, the developer, a couple of times, and he was very cordial, very informative, and receptive. And I thought I'd just let you know about that. I'd also like to thank DOT, Brooke Oswald, any number of people who have helped me to formulate whatever is going on. While the Reno Gateway Business Park is beautifully designed, it continues to present major City of Reno master plan issues by cutting off neighbors because of large-scale transport, emergency services who lack equipment and manpower for a project of this scale, a Canapa Parks planned south of that, adjacent to the development, safety on local roads, and newly extended, insufficiently short highway ramp impact to Mogul. Our area attracts residents who value quiet spaces, small vehicle traffic, clean air, low pollution, walking, jogging, hiking, biking areas without the danger of heavy traffic on Mogul's X7 ramps and roads, which were designed for residential light vehicles. Slow, heavy traffics entering I-80 with an empty weight of 15,000 pounds and gross weights of 80,000 pounds need 2 to 3 miles and 5 minutes to reach the 55 to 65 mile per hour speed limit or speeds, and will create added danger for Mogul residents and traffic on I-80. Currently, I-80 traffic is incredibly dangerous at exit 7, either one side or the other, because of speeding on I-80, line of sight, and heavy trucks forcing exit 7 vehicles into the road edge and taking down fences. Crossover traffic through Mogul ramps trying to weave around slow trucks to get on or off the same ramps will create merging danger on those short ramps. The new east ramp extension at Mogul will be approximately 1/4 of a mile long and 3/4 of a mile too short for slow, heavy trucks to get up to speed, causing more danger.
3 minutes can go pretty quick, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Tate, please have all of those things that you've got written, you can turn them into Michelle, and she'll get them entered into the
I will give you
record.
the rest of my speech.
Okay, thank you.
This is how many trips they're talking.
Is this part of the 3-minute? I'm looking for Ron Kamenkow.
I'm sorry, these are the amount of trips that will be made through Mogul, 1,253 trips.
Okay, we understand that. That's in our staff report, so I'd like to bring it back to Ron Kamenkow, followed by Gary Baumberger.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, my name is Ron Kamenkow, and I live at 10265 Mogul Road on the west side of Reno. I've lived at this location since October of 2007. Throughout the course of the time that I've lived here, I've worked as a locomotive engineer based in the Reno area. And like nearly all railroad engineers and trainmen, like my brother Steve Brown back here, I've been involved with several vehicle pedestrian strikes throughout my career, dating back to 1996. On June 24, 2011, my train, the California Zephyr, was hit by a tandem truck at the Highway 95 crossing in Marion, Nevada, resulting in the death of 6 people, including the conductor, the truck driver, and 4 passengers. So the reason that I've come here tonight to talk to you, basically is about the issue of my concern with increasing potential for collision between trains and motor vehicles at the railroad crossing, which is directly adjacent to the highway intersection at Exit 7, the place we've all been talking about. From what I understand of the proposed industrial park's location, it appears that all traffic that would be entering and exiting Interstate 80 to and from the industrial park would pass literally within just a few feet of this railroad crossing. So while it is true that traffic destined to and from the site wouldn't actually use this crossing, the additional presence of more vehicle traffic, especially the large trucks, would pose additional hazards for those of us who do use the crossing. There's only a handful of homes on the south side of the tracks, but as Laurie pointed out, more and more people are using the area for recreation, and more people are parking there. People are walking their dogs, going kayaking, tubing, fishing, and so forth. And what this does is create more traffic on the crossing. Now add into the mix these trucks and more vehicular traffic. Literally, just as you come off the top of that rise at Main 1, there's nowhere to go. You have the right-of-way when you come out, which makes sense. But the other traffic doesn't realize you have the right-of-way. It happens all the time. People don't stop. So how do we solve the problem? Because it's going to get worse. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm a locomotive engineer. So I have a limited understanding of what can be done. Perhaps a reconfiguration of the intersection, complete with traffic lights, might be the solution. Given the complexity of the intersection and the limited amount of land space between the highway and the railroad track, I'm not sure that this would actually work. A fully protected railroad crossing with flashing lights and gates that activate automatically when a train is approaching is estimated at $250,000, $250,000. This would certainly help the situation, but perhaps we need both crossing gates and traffic lights. But even then, as any locomotive engineer or trainman will tell you, when railroad crossings are in close proximity to traffic interchanges, especially complex, convoluted ones like this, which are more than just a simple crossroads, a confusing and very hazardous situation is inevitable. Thank you. And I did provide all of you with copies of the, there's a lot more on here than what I just spoke.
Thank you. And that was has also been entered into the record by Michelle.
Thank you.
Gary Baumberger, followed by Paul McNailage.
My name is Gary Baumberger. I live at 11405 Mogul Road. I've lived there for 7 years. My wife's family's been there for the last 100 years. We're the fourth generation on the property. According to the staff report, page 16, it says it indicates in the master plan that there are no residences south and to the east of the project. That's false. You can see up there the residences that are there right now, and it includes 11 parcels. How do you do the next slide? Just
the arrows, yeah.
Oh, cool. This is right from the SUP. The proposed access points are on Union Pacific property. I do realize they have easement rights. The main issue is proposed western entrance. There is a business that is there currently who leases the property from the railroad. Mogul Road itself is actually on rail property. Just need to know if Union Pacific has been notified. Can't do any work on Union Pacific property without their say-so, and permits like that are at least $250,000 from my experience. More pictures of that intersection. NDOT more than likely could do something with it, but the issue in my experience, 29 years of construction on highways, trucks will not be able to make that turn without going into eastbound traffic. It's just not going to happen unless you do a setback of about 150 feet back. That's eastbound facing the ramp. This is how narrow the road is, where they're talking about trying to put sidewalks in, curb, gutter, and bike paths. You can see that there is no room for that currently. Edge of pavement to the building there is less than 10 feet. So you can't put a sidewalk there. So I suppose you're going to put a sidewalk there and have them within 10 feet of the railroad. That's all railroad property. You have to be 20 feet off the center line of tracks, and currently that edge is at 25 feet. Drivers that aren't used to the area, this just happened a couple weeks ago. There's not enough room to turn around as it is, and this is at the western entrance. We had to stop, we had to call the emergency number and stop the trains and have a tow truck pull them off, and then railroad crews had to come down and verify the tracks weren't messed up. This will happen continually because there is not enough room, and that's a short truck. That's only a 40-foot box. It's not a 54-footer. Again, people talked about down at Cabela's, don't understand why we need another site like this when you have one down the road that's still halting construction because they can't fill the vacancies. Phase 1 has less than 10 bays being used, and there's 100 and some bays there. Project like this should be out at Trick, which is what it was designed for. Project like this should not be in the middle of a residential area. And there's some other issues I have with the conditions. Condition 14, talking about night pours. 2 a.m. pour in a residential area does not happen. And I've discussed with one of the concrete company's corporate lawyers. They said they will not turn off backup alarms and endanger their people, because there's a stipulation there that they turn off backup alarms on concrete trucks. They will not do it. That's an OSHA violation.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
I guess you bring your own PowerPoint, you get the applause. That's pretty nice. Paul McNeilage, followed by Steve Golder.
You don't have to clap for me. Paul McNeilage, I'm going to keep it short because of the postponement. We're all going to be back here next time. I'm saying that for you guys. I don't want to waste your time, but I also want to acknowledge that the time of all of myself, and I mean, I got a babysitter at home. I had to get a babysitter to come here. We all have to come back here now because of this postponement. We could have done this the first time. I'm going to keep it short. I'm here because I live here on the river. I want to represent myself and my neighbors. This is where this development's going in. It's a huge development, 65 bay doors. That's already been stated, so I'll just skim over that. I know you guys are a commission and you have to make certain findings, so I tried to organize it for you according to the findings. I want to address these two first. Compatible with surrounding land use, location, scale, intensity appropriate to the area, I'd say no. Okay, so developers make the point that this is zoned industrial right here, but if you look at the broader context, and okay, there's the little storage right here, look at the broader context, this is all residential, and we've heard from many of the neighbors who've lived there for many years that this is now a residential area. It doesn't matter that this was zoned 20 years ago to be industrial. In the meantime, it's become residential and it's become recreational. It's one of the greatest resources Reno and the Tahoe area has to offer is the open space and the beauty around here. That's why I moved to this area, and I go hiking up here all the time. So I'd also like to point out there's the scenic overlook, which here we acknowledge the history of this area. This is going to be now, if this goes through, an overlook onto this development, which I don't think, we don't necessarily want the gateway to Reno to look like a big warehouse. I'd rather have it look like nice sagebrush and mountains. This is the bridge that was talked about earlier. This is the access point. This is where lots of people from Mogul come and go hiking, walking with their dogs, et cetera, kids riding bikes, et cetera. This is where this thing is going to go in. If you hike up into the hills, you'll see that, what was a beautiful view is now going to be looking down on huge buildings that are just totally out of scale. That's the point of these. It's just out of scale and it doesn't belong here. So I would say regarding these two findings, it's kind of, from my perspective, difficult to make those. Moving on, adequate service and infrastructure. You've heard from many of my neighbors about the traffic, and it's a big problem. So here's that view of that interchange again. What's been pointed out is that these on-ramps are just extremely short. I think legally it's probably impossible to make a shorter one, right? Both eastbound and westbound. Now, NDOT might try to improve that. But before anything goes ahead here, we need to know the details about what those improvements are going to be. No decision should be made on this without knowing very extreme fine detail. How are we going to fix this problem if we're going to put in a development here? And yeah, adverse environmental impacts, I'd say, there are going to be plenty of those as well. So, yeah, in conclusion, I'd just like to respectfully ask you to take into consideration the interests of the residents here as compared to the interests of perhaps, one or two developers that are not even based in Reno, based in Las Vegas. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Golder, followed by Norman Nakata.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Steve Golder. I live in Mogul on Firethorn Circle, directly behind the 4th Street westbound on-ramp. So as of right now, without the commercial facilities, we have traffic, noise from the trucks, diesel fumes. I've noted in the 17 years of living there, large trucks clogging up the neighborhood. They like to go into Mogul thinking there's a different way out to get on 80 when it snows, when 80 closes. And when 80 closes in front of Mogul area, it is backed up for a while. Right now, the trucks that go on 4th Street, they like to try to sleep there at night if they can and idle. And a lot of them get out of their trucks and pee behind the bushes and throw their pee bottles out. And twice a year I go out there with a trash bag and clean that stuff up if I can, or sometimes the NDOT crews go out there and clean that up. So that's kind of a bummer to have that and to witness that too. I'm sure this will greatly affect the property of my home. You work real hard to own a home, and I own a home, and it'd be a real bummer to get hit in the wallet when all this goes in, when I try to sell my house in the future, and someone says, gee, we're gonna pick another neighborhood because you live right by the I-80, the railroad, and this now industrial park. Right now, when trucks go over the cattle crossing there that is on the westbound off-ramp, our house actually rattles. Some of the china on the walls it will make a noise, and you'd like look and go, wow, look at that. I'm afraid that when this subdivision goes in and we have a barbecue, I'm going to be a little embarrassed to have friends over. They're going to say, gee, Steve, nice neighborhood with all the trucking that's going by right behind your home. There's going to be Jake brakes, they speed. When I go to work in the morning when a snowstorm, the westbound on-ramp, when it snows, those trucks can't make that curve and they slide off in the mud and actually block the on-ramp. So that's a problem. The westbound off-ramp, when vehicles go too fast, they actually crash into the chain link fence, and they probably take it out once or twice a year. And then NDOT goes there and fixes it, and then people crash into it again. I mentioned the Jake brakes. Well, if they put Jake brake signs up, I'm sure that the truckers don't really, they have somewhere to be and they get paid by the mile, and their mission is to drop off their load, pick up another load, and move on. So all in all, I think that this development should go at Park USA, and it's kind of a bummer that it's just going to interrupt our way of life out there in Mogul. It's pretty quiet and pretty low key. And on that note, thank you for letting me speak, and thank you.
Thank you. Norman Okada, followed by Susan Romstad.
Hi, I'm Norman Okada, Mogul resident for the last 13 years, Reno resident for 42 years. I moved there because it's a quiet, nice neighborhood. I echo the concerns of a lot of people here. I've had problems on taking that westbound or eastbound ramp onto 80. I've slid off before in the winter. I've waited there many times for the traffic to clear coming from the west before I can merge on. I understand NDOT is building a merge lane. However, when you have 60-foot rigs trying to get on this freeway on a steep ramp, I can just see the backups there. As for the traffic count that's going to be added of 1,283 vehicles, that works out to be about 1 a minute. That's quite a bit. It's significant. I don't see where it could work that well for the neighborhood. Just in closing, I just say it's not compatible for the existing surrounding area and land use. Also, the project is just not good for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Romstad, followed by Kathy Woodard.
Hi. First of all, my name is Susan Ramstad. That's okay.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you for allowing us to have this time, even though we will be back. But I do want to take a minute to note that when your staff person was talking about that we all received letters, we didn't. There weren't a lot of us who did, and I'm not going to go backwards, or else I would have been here from the very beginning. I've been a Mogul resident for 35 years. I live in Upper Mogul, and there's only one way in and one way out for the residents of Upper Mogul, as well as Lower Mogul. They might be able to go out West 4th or intersect where we leave, but traffic has been there for years with the development of Del Webb, Somerset, so forth and so on. And the freeways have been a nightmare to get on and get off of. There have been times because people with their GPS think that they can bypass the freeway to come up into Upper Mogul, that at 2:30 in the morning we had a semi truck that I live on Mountain Ridge Road and it deads end into Access Road, that the neighbors were out there in the weather trying to help it back up and get out of there. The roads are not equipped to handle this kind of traffic. We have the bike lane that is out there, which the bike lane is probably this wide, and we're always contending with the bikers. We moved out there years ago so that our children could experience the same rural experience that we did, and we'd like to have that be the same experience for our grandchildren and the new residents that are bringing children back into our neighborhood. I'd like to thank the council for those of you who did come out to view our community and our site, but I would also like to invite the rest of you to come out, and more importantly, maybe you should come at a time when traffic is at its worst. And so I guess all I really want to say is traffic, safety, noise, air pollution, all impact our community and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Woodard, followed by Tom Bradley.
Hi, I'm Kathy Woodard. I just implore you to come out there and look at the area, because the pictures you're seeing doesn't give you a clear vision of what's really going on. It doesn't show you how narrow that off-ramp is where it goes down and it turns. During the winter, a truck came down there. He jackknifed, he blocked it. We couldn't get into Mogul. We had to go all the way to Verdi and take the Verdi exit, turn around and come all the way back and take the other off-ramp. The bicyclists on the weekend, I can't even tell you how many there are. I know there's times that I've tried to leave my street and go down Silver Ranch Road, and you can barely go because there's so many bicycles. Well, that's what that bicycle lane was made for. It wasn't made for diesel trucks. So we just implore you, give this another consideration, because it would just be a mess to have all those diesel trucks down there. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Bradley, followed by Michael Weston.
Hi, my name is Tom Bradley. I've been a 32-year resident of Mogul out there. All of you have said you've been out there. So if you've been out there, you've probably seen this sign where it says no services. That's coming from Reno. And then when you come from the west, from Boomtown area, you've probably seen this one. It says no services too. So it shows we don't. And then the main one, when you take our turnoff, it says Mogul, exit 20 miles an hour. Then it says residential area, no through traffic. And that's why all of us have moved out there as part of that reason, because we like that. It's a residential area. Also too, my big concern, I ride bike and everything, and there's the Tahoe Pyramid Bikeway, and if you ride that and if you go under the underpasses, they are not wide enough for a pedestrian to walk and a bike to go by at the same time. And if two vehicles are there, this is the state of Nevada law on bikes, and vehicles are supposed to move over 3 feet from bikes. Well, that overpass, if you were to put a sidewalk and a bike lane on each side, anytime a vehicle would come there, and if 2 trucks pass, they're going to hit each other or they're going to take out a bike or a pedestrian. So that underpass is my main concern, because everybody uses it to walk their dogs, to get down to the river and stuff, because it's a recreational area, and that's all of us. And with the traffic of all those trucks day and night and stuff, the safety factor of that underpass is a big problem, and it hasn't been addressed yet of a last meeting or this meeting at all, what's going on. And to make it, probably to pass code and everything, they'd have to tear down both overpasses and widen them so you could get a sidewalk and a bike path in there. And if you go out to Boomtown or go down off of Woodland, those roads are twice as wide as our roads are in the Mogul area for the semi trucks, and they're industrial parks. All our roads are just all residential. If you look back on this map, and you can see some residential roads, they're the same size as the trucks are going to be using. So in my theory, safety, and safety is the big problem with this project and stuff, and so far it hasn't been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Weston, followed by Lori Canepa Bonberger, excuse me.
Mike Weston, my wife.
Can you move the microphone over?
Since '87.
Can you move the microphone over, talking to that, please? Thank you.
Just 5 weeks ago, there was 11 o'clock at night, there was a semi-tractor trailer rig that blocked the off-ramp during the snowstorm about 5 weeks ago. The guys that were driving the truck, I don't know what planet they were from, they were trying to put the chains on the front of the wheels, the steering wheels. And I told them, no, they don't go there. They go on the drive wheels. And they said they'd never put chains on before. They spoke very little English. When the trooper showed up, he was chuckling. And he said, we better call the big tow truck to come out and deal with them, because they totally blocked the lane. Several years ago, my son took photographs, which he doesn't have now, but of a truck that backed up, same thing in a snowstorm, backed a telephone pole over, and I'm sure some of the people here remember that. It was late at night, and they blocked the whole Silvey Ranch portion off. There's no other escape route in Mogul to get out except where that is, and extremely dangerous. And Boomtown was made to store trucks and stuff. That area is suitable for that, or either as a second option would be the Mayan over ramp there, where there's more suitable for that type of thing. But Mogul, extremely dangerous. And when our 2 kids popped up when they were younger, driving their bikes, my son Philip almost got hit by a semi coming down the hill. And I told him, no more, just stay within eyesight of our house when they were young driving. And I've called NDOT before about the trucks coming into Mogul at night, braking hard and tearing up the pavement. And they said, no, they're not supposed to do that, because these roads aren't designed for these trucks 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes in wintertime, there'll be 5 or 6, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm sure a lot of these people will back me up. They come in there and hit the brakes, and they try and take bitter brush and go around. And many times I've put my clothes on real fast, like at midnight, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'll hop in a car and go out and flag them down. They're going round and round in the subdivision. And then I say, hey, just follow me, I'll get you out of here. And a lot of these drivers, they're from south of the border, from the Somalia, they're from the Ukraine. A lot of them don't even speak half English, and I can't believe they're driving 80,000-pound trucks. So about 15 years ago, and Rick and Dina probably remember, I had a brand new Crown Victoria hit by an 80,000-pound semi-truck. Luckily, I didn't get hurt, but I came very close. It pushed the rear bumper back to the rear windshield, totaled the car, and because of the size of the car, I came out with no injuries. That's extremely dangerous. And also, I've been a pilot for 50 years. No accidents, no violations, no traffic tickets on my driving record in 55 years. Never been charged for an accident. And you can verify that. And I know what leads to accidents is when
Thank you, Michael.
you have people ignore the safety issues. And that's, I'm not a very good speaker, but I know what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Michael. Next is Lori Bonberger, followed by Vern Tronberg.
My name is Lori Canapa Bonberger. I live at 11405 Mogul Road. I am south and west of this project. I'm a fourth-generation native Nevadan. I come from a ranching family, and I inherited this 17-acre ranch in Mogul. I'm speaking today against this Reno Gateway business project that is before you. In 2005, my family sold 200 acres in Mogul on the south side of the river to the Nature Conservancy. We were proud to keep this land natural and not sell the land to developers, so the land could be enjoyed by many. We also hoped that the view of the mountains would remain natural, and we were assured that it would. It was expected to be used for outdoor recreation so that hikers, joggers, dog walkers, horseback riders, and many others could use the trails and enjoy the nature and views of the trail. They said it would possibly have the name of Canapa Ranch Trailhead associated with it. Now, years later, the Gateway project is only 3/4 of a mile from this. It is being sought for industrial use with semi-trucks and trailers driving up and down Mogul Road. I know for sure this is not the way that the Canapa family would have wanted it, or the majority of residents of Mogul or Verdi for that matter. I hope you will consider the implications of what this project could aim to do. Those of us who live here want to live near the mountains, near the river, and near peace and quiet. Most of us choose to not be in a high traffic area with semi-trucks driving in and out at all hours of the day and night. And for those of us who have acreage, we are to abide by the 1 house per 5 acres, and we do pay taxes according to that. As a resident, I do love the peace and tranquility that a ranch provides, and I'm in awe every day at the amount of wildlife that I get to see. My neighbors are nature living, and they choose to live here because they respect the land and the ecology. I hope you will consider how this impacts the residents living here, the freeway drivers, and the interchange, called obsolete by Brooke Oswald, I would call extremely dangerous. These inadequate on and off ramps, the high amount of traffic that will be on Mogul Road and in the surrounding area, the adverse noise and lighting, and in general, the overall pollution of this area, and what these trucks and this project could create. Thank you.
Thank you. Vern Tranberg, followed by Tom Andrews.
Vern's not here. He wanted his comments
Oh,
read into the
sorry,
record.
okay. Oh, that's where it says, please read the letter into the record. I'm going to say Reno Planning Commission. My name is Vern Tranberg. I've been a resident of Upper Mogul for 32 years. My family and I moved here because it was rural, no sidewalks, no cluster mailboxes, just asphalt streets with dirt and sagebrush on each side. We were allowed to have horses, and it was always a sight to see horseback riders come up our street of Bobcat and Mount Ridge. The same as the people in Verdi and the North Valleys. We like it rural, but it's all gone because of development. We look to the west and see rooftop after rooftop, Del Webb. We look to the north, and homes cover all the ridge lines, Somerset. Now to regarding this potential building off of an 80-bay trucking warehouse in our neighborhood. I hope this is not a done deal already because I totally oppose this project. Our highway off-ramps cannot handle the truck traffic and will exit east and west, not to mention pedestrian safety and danger to all the bicycle riders that enter into the westbound exit on their way through Mogul to Verdi. Also, all the diesel fumes that could saturate our area on a calm day. On a day when there is a slight breeze, guess where those fumes are going to end up? Right in the Reno Basin. Talk about air pollution. It's going to add more. This facility needs to be built east of Reno, not west in a residential area. Also, I have one question for our Reno City Council. Why is it called the Truckee Meadows? We are 30 miles from Truckee and there's not a meadow left in Reno. Perhaps another Silicon Valley number? Because that's where, number two, because that's where we are headed. The only thing that is stopping more development in our far north and our west is the California state line. Very concerned, Vern Tranberg. I probably could have emphasized that joke a little better and got a bigger laugh. I wasn't prepped for it, sorry about that. Tom Andrews, followed by Joseph Callahan.
My name is Tom Andrews, and I live at 10 Bitterbrush Road in Mogul. I've lived there since 1982. And like a number of the previous speakers, I've seen a lot of change in Mogul. I've loved every minute I've lived there because it's a rural area, it has rural values, and it's just been a very nice place to live. And I was at the first meeting regarding this new development, and at that time I mentioned the safety issues about the interchange. I'm not even going to go into that because other speakers have already covered that topic thoroughly. And I also mentioned the view denigration at the scenic overlook, and people have mentioned that. There are a number of other issues that I do want to mention, one of which is that I'm very worried about the water situation in Mogul if this thing goes in, because it's going to require a lot of water. You're talking 267 proposed parking spaces. Well, there's going to have to be toilets, there's going to have to be water for fire, there's going to have to be water for washing things. There's going to be a lot of water used, and I haven't heard anyone address this issue. I'm on a well. I don't know whether this development plans on drilling a well or where they plan on using the neighborhood water system, which is designed for the neighborhood, and it's not designed for this new large source of water, or what. So maybe we can clarify that before the next meeting on the part of the developer, how they plan to get their water. I would like to know. Another issue that I have, which probably is not important to some of you, but it's important to me, is I'm going to speak for the animals of the area. Since I've lived there, a lot of deer and other animals have been pushed out of areas where they used to live, like Somerset. Nobody took that into consideration. They built all those houses up there, and those deer had no place to go. Well, now a lot of them come down into Mogul in the wintertime. They still need to get a drink of water in the summertime, and they go underneath that overpass down to the river to get it. And if this thing goes in, they won't be able to do that anymore. So you need to think of animals once in a while, too. The push to just develop, zone things, and just because it's zoned that way, it's okay to build a certain facility there, doesn't cut it anymore. People have to be more sensitive to the environment, to people's lifestyle values, to safety and lots of other things, and I thought that's why the master plan was developed. But if this project passes, I would say you might as well just throw the master plan away because you're not following it. The master plan mentions a lot of these values and how important they are to the community, and these people sitting back here think they're important too. And I hope you also think they're important. Thank you.
Joseph Callahan, followed by Larry Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Joseph Callahan, and I am a resident of Somerset Del Webb. I've lived there for the last 7 years, and I'm opposed to this project for a few simple reasons, and I'll keep this short because I echo pretty much everything that's been said here already tonight. And anyway, I just want to make a few points. First of all, there's the obvious air pollution and safety concerns, but something that should concern everybody in the Reno metropolitan area is the water pollution potential that from hazardous spills and everything else. Because of this, it's much too close to our water supply, which is the Truckee River, and that's pretty much it. I think that just to keep it simple, This development would probably be better suited to be put on the eastern side of Reno in the industrial park. And I think that's why we have it. I think it's absolute insanity to put it there. And I don't really want to rattle on because everybody's pretty much said what I wanted to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Larry Gonzalez, followed by Deborah Lynn Hall.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Council. I appreciate your time. Thank you for having this meeting and letting me and others here speak. I've been in the Mogul area at 5 Mule Deer Drive for 33 years, and based on the numbers that I hear tonight, I feel like a rookie. I've had an opportunity in that time to witness several accidents at that intersection. To my recollection, at least one of them was deadly. It's a very narrow freeway through that small corridor that is the Truckee River Valley. And during the time that I've lived there, none of the improvements made have widened that or addressed the increase of traffic from the Verdi area, which is now Somerset, Del Webb, and some additional developments are being currently built. It can't handle the traffic load as it is. And many have mentioned here, and I echo all of their comments about safety and other issues there. But trying to get on that on-ramp is, as it is today, a hazard. It's very unsafe. There's not enough merge time. The merge lane is too short. And many people are hugging that right lane so they can get off on West 4th Street. Coming the other direction is just as hazardous because the off-ramp is merging with the on-ramp at the East 4th or West 4th on-ramp to I-80. So it's a very treacherous and hazardous area to be commuting on a daily basis with the increased traffic from the Verde area plus all of the increased traffic from the California side. I would invite you to go out there on a Sunday afternoon when all the traffic's going back to California, or maybe on a Friday evening when it's all coming into Reno, and it's almost impossible to get on. I hope you take all of the comments made tonight into consideration. It is a way of life that will be extremely impacted with the development like this, and I agree with most of the speakers who say that there's better and more appropriate places to put a project like this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Deborah Lynn Hall, followed by Hyman Bowman.
I want to thank the commission for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Deborah Lynn Hull. I live at 10345 Mountain Dew Circle in Mogul, and we've been there since 1988. I also express and feel with many of the comments that were made here tonight, and I'd like to kind of annotate a few things on top of those. I appreciate the commission and developers' desire to have land in our area be of highest and best use. But regarding the south side of I-80, while the developers can mitigate noise and light to a certain extreme, we've established that it's been a recreational area for so many of us for decades. And so at the very least, we would pursue a substantial easement by prescription for use on that land. I-80 West access must go through the Mogul Meadow neighborhood to get both back onto I-80 West and to come from I-80 to get to the facility. It has to go through the neighborhood areas. I believe that all of us in our title property got the bundle of rights for ownership, and one of those bundle of rights is quiet enjoyment. There is no way to mitigate quiet enjoyment with that many semis going into our neighborhood. In addition, the residential safety, I ask that the Planning Commission procure or create a study to address the potential impact of economic obsolescence to our neighborhood. I believe it's a valid concern, and you've heard it several times tonight. I don't want to pretend to know where this place should be, but I truly believe that I can stand with the community and say it should not be at the Mogul off-ramp. Thank you for your time.
Lyman Bowman, followed by Amanda Bowman.
Hi, my name is Lyman Bowman. I live at 10300 Silver Ranch Road, and live there with my wife and 3 kids. We are one of, I think, the 3 closest houses. We are directly on the other side of I-80, and very concerned about how this development fits in with this, the whole area. We've talked to everyone, or we've heard everyone so far, and I guess I don't want to repeat myself or them, but it's safety. It comes down to safety. There's going to be increased light pollution, air pollution, possible spillage. Very frustrated at this point. We were not advised about the first meeting. There were many people we know that were not advised about it. It seems that a lot of people from Verdi showed up, but nobody from Mogul that this really affects showed up for the first meeting. Now we're going to have this postponed again and expected to come back and do this all over once again. As was said, we've got people taking care of our kids just because we're down here. We get to do this all over. The increase in litter that's going to come from these, it's just unacceptable. The safety with the on-ramps, it's just insane that anybody would want to put trucks, 1,200 trucks. I think it was the city council that designed the Reno Pyramid Bike Trail to go right through this area. Now we want to mix up 1,200 bikes or 1,200 trucks with 1,000 bikers a day. I mean, there are so many bikers, it's unbelievable. There are no sidewalks, our kids are there. As has been pointed out, there are so many pedestrians that are walking down there. I cannot think of a worse place to put this with that kind of an intersection. As pointed out before, there's all these other areas that are right up the street, Verdi or USA Parkway. I'm having trouble figuring out what's going to be going on with these trucks. What is going to be carried in these trucks? Is there going to be a fuel farm that's going to go on this property? That's going to increase the chances of contamination in the soil, possible spills, which will go down to the Truckee River, as we've shown. Have they proposed like a sound wall that would help prevent the sound from affecting the neighborhood? Is this a 24-hour operation? Is there going to be limits to when they can operate this? We've got these peak trips of 199 in the afternoon hourly. I mean, it's too much for this area. It just does not belong there. I hope that you will give into consideration the residences over the developers. I mean, I'm all pro-business. I want to see Reno grow and succeed, be vibrant, but at the same time, we've got to do it holistically, I think. I'll give it the microphone.
Thank you. Amanda Bowman, followed by Matt Ryan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening, but I want to point out that I feel this sense of burden, and I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm not that politically correct person. And while we've been very businesslike, somebody said to me, I feel like my comment is too personal, but I want you to understand it is personal. And I noticed that you're giving me tonight 3 minutes of your time. And that there seems to be this sense of burden by the staff and the developers and by you guys, but you want me for the remainder of my time in Mogul, for as long as I should reside there, to be burdened by 1,283 trucks daily on a daily basis. And with all due respect, while you've all been, or some of you have been to the site, what I wonder is if we could do a trial run and have 1,283 trucks come in for maybe a 5-day period of time. And I would invite you to come to my home. By the way, my name's Amanda Bowman, and I reside at 10300 Silver Ranch Road, which is directly across from the site. And I wonder if you might be interested in staying with me for a week's stay while we bring in those trucks and try it out. It is a matter of safety. I don't know if this will show up, but I'm willing to give it a try. Oh, it's not quite bright enough, but there we go. That's my front yard. And it's not very big, but in the front yard there are 2 little girls. And I want them to grow up in a place where they can go outside. And as it is, there are days that there are trucks stopped along the freeway or the I-80, and I get concerned and I say, play in the backyard and stay safe. Imagine the air quality. Will you guys be there to pay the medical bills and to keep us healthy when my dogs are in the yard and my children are in the yard and I'm in the yard? With all due respect, I don't think that it's fair. And I'm going to be really honest and say that personally, I have a business, and within the last 6 months, the city of Reno, who I greatly respect, said to me, for an area that was zoned for a particular use, they said, you can't have your business there. Things have changed. And honestly, it's a matter of safety, and we want to ensure the air quality that your customers are going to be breathing. So we don't want to allow you to be in this business and in this facility, even though it was zoned appropriately. So I might ask you if you wouldn't consider thinking about whether it's zoned or not being relevant, but will it be safe for us? Will it be okay for us for the long term, for our children, for our animals, for our neighborhood, for our residential being, and our opportunity to live a quiet, peaceful dwelling? I'm not sure that it will. And I am going to be honest and say that should this get approved and we all have to come back here again, I'm going to question your morals and your values. We respect and trust every one of you. And if we can't put that trust in all of you to make the right decision, I am going to be sorry that this is what I call my city and my community, because you are the people I rely on to make it right. Please consider that.
Matt Ryan, followed by Michael Smith.
Hi, my name's Matt Ryan. I live at 20 Bobcat Drive in Mogul. Appreciate you guys hearing us. We, as reiterated by everyone, we never really got a notice for coming down here. And I'm sure you guys have seen the ward map for, how we're represented kind of does a dance right around us. So we don't really get to vote for anyone in Reno, but then here's where we are. So that kind of doesn't make sense to me. It's more just a comment, I guess. Most of the things that have been discussed, I can reiterate, I guess, a little bit. The winter junk show that goes on around there with big rigs jackknifed all over the place, that's a mess. The Tour de France thing that we have going on the weekends and in springtime, you should come out, and if you're not a bike rider, you should come out and see it, because it's just, there's not really room for trucks in there with the Tour de France thing going on. The intersections have been discussed. The empty building in Boomtown has been discussed, the eastbound off-ramp, all those kind of things. I understand that those can all probably be engineered around, but if you think of the scope of how much work that is to redesign all those intersections, redesign all this stuff, to have that make like economic feasible sense, the project has to be massive. Like, it has to be, because otherwise how are you going to you know what I mean? Like, you try to push this all onto a developer, it has to be of massive scope. So that, you start thinking of the massive size of this thing and then the little community, and it doesn't fit. So I hope you guys have learned from what I think is some of the mistakes that Reno's made in the past, which is putting anything like any of these big businesses next to the river. I just think is a mistake. It's like, you have all this desert you can do it all looks the same, and then you have one river running through town. Why stack all that stuff on the river? Why not leave the river alone? And I'm sure you guys enjoy the river. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Smith, followed by Phyllis Cates.
My name is Mike Smith. I'm a civil engineer, and I've only lived here for 48 years, so I'm kind of a newcomer. I'm also a lucky owner of a piece of property on the river, and maybe unlucky that I'm just east of this property. I'm kind of right next door to Fred, and I acquired the property with the thought that I would one day put a little cabin on it next to the river and have a nice place that all of these people have talked about. But it sounds to me like that may not happen. This sounds like this develop would diminish my property's potential for this. I'm about 200 feet east of where this is proposed, east-southeast. And I just want to say I agree with all of the comments that I've heard tonight. Apologize for not being prepared, but it sounds to me like it's an incompatible use of the area. It is clearly residential, and there are a lot of people that will be impacted. And I want my vote to be in opposition to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis Cates.
Good evening. Thank you very much. We appreciate all of you. Sometimes it may not sound like that to you right now, but we feel this is so important that you will listen to us, because unfortunately, I'm sad that probably none of you live in Mogul. We wish one of you did, because then you might really understand the feel that we all have of this little tiny, small little area. The part about all of this happening is that there is a fire station about directly east of the first beginning of exit 7. That fire station, at a moment's notice, needs to roll those trucks out underneath that underpass and head back on the narrow little exit and entrance right now. If there are great big trucks, 1,200 coming and going, that is definitely going to affect the fire station that just moved there in the last 5 years. It moved from the Boomtown area. That fire station services the edges of Reno. It heads back west and goes to the roundabout area and heads up to Del Webb and Somerset as well. That roundabout area only can be accessed traveling west. And I bet you know that area I'm speaking of. In coming east, many of those residents take our exit 7 at the east exit, go back under that little underpass, curve around and head back so that they can then go home. So our exit and entrance isn't just servicing the Mogul community. It's servicing Del Webb. It's servicing all of the Somerset people that are coming and going, as well as the important fire station. And I hope you'll take that into consideration tonight as well. Please, 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 we implore you, think about all of the other things that that exit provides. Thank you again.
Thank you. I have reached the end of my stack. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment on this item before I close public comment? Is there anyone here who actually hasn't made comment yet? I just want to check on that. So, no, thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Again, we have some questions and we have a request from the applicant for a continuation. But I would open it up first to my commission for any questions or comments to the applicant or staff at this time. Anyone? Commissioner Gower.
Mr. Chairman, question of staff. In terms of noticing, what is going to be the noticing perimeter or coverage? Not that anybody didn't get the notice, it doesn't seem like, but.
Correct. Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner for the record. So the noticing on this is it's the required 750 feet per Reno Municipal Code. The applicant did request that they extend that to 1,200 feet. So it was noticed to 1,200 feet. If they were to proceed again, we would probably, I imagine they would continue to notice to that extent. So this was noticed to 750 feet again, and then we did notice to an additional, out to 1,200 feet, so an additional, 450 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Weisky.
Thank you. Brooke, before you leave, so if we make a motion for postponement, do we have to have a date certain? And if this project changes from what was submitted, does the process start over, timeframe start over? What are we looking at? Because I have heard that we may be looking at a new or different type of a project when this comes back.
So this project was originally submitted in March of last year, so this project has been in a year. We do have the 60 days. The applicant has signed a waiver of time, waiving that required time per state law to get this to a hearing. We would continue that. So that's that. I'm trying to think the other question you had.
But, I mean, do we have to go date certain on the
Oh, yes,
postponement?
no, you do not have to go date certain. The applicant would just have to renotice the site, repost the site of that date 10 days prior to the hearing.
Okay, and what is staff going to do if a new project appears, a redesign or whatever? I mean, something is causing postponement, so at what level do you request that they go back to a NAB meeting, or that we get a new staff report? What are you looking for?
I think if the project was significantly changed, if that was the uses had changed or the square footage had changed to a large percent, or that truck traffic or that traffic on that interstate has changed due to the use change, we would have a new staff report referencing to this one, reanalyze the new project per those standards or per the findings as required in the SUP for the cuts and fills and that SUP. And Claudia Henson.
And I may jump in, and we would bring it back to the NAB at that point. And it's my understanding that the applicant plans to hold another neighborhood meeting with any redesigns, and I'm getting a head nod on that one. And we would, like I said, we would send it back to the NAB as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any additional questions? Or a motion? I think we got some clarification on where that would go. So, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky, I make a motion for postponement in the case of LDC 18-00065, Reno Gateway Business Park, date uncertain, and we will wait for staff to re-agendize it for us.
Commissioner Gower, I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for postponement. Any additional discussion or comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
I'm having a hard time issuing another continuance here.
This is our talking time. Thank you very much. We understand that, but you had 3 minutes, and now it's time for our discussion. Excuse me, ma'am. We're having a conversation up here at the commission level. Commissioner Marshall.
But I'm not certain, if it is, as Commissioner Weisky mentioned, that we're looking at a redesign or some other kind of project, then the appropriate action would be to withdraw it, not to continue it again and morph into something else. If in fact it's, we're just talking about some slight change to the project, then why can't we hear about it now? So we have a lot of people here. My sense is that, or I would not be in favor of continuing the project without some notion that it's actually something that will actually make a difference. Or if it's another project, then withdraw this application and move ahead with what your project actually is. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marshall. And I would like to ask Claudia maybe for a little clarification on the actual explanation of, as Commissioner Marshall mentioned, some alternate option to a postponement as opposed to a withdrawal, or in a situation like this, if there is a dramatic redesign, are we looking at something where a postponement would be different than a withdrawal?
Claudia Hanson, Planning Manager. It really comes down to administration of the application. So they could withdraw and come in with a new application, or they could come back and redesign. It really comes down to the fees associated with it. It's going to be the same case number. The description could change, and we could take it back to hearing. They're in both cases, they would come back to this body, and it would be renoticed in either situation. So whether we are looking at a new application where the description and case number are different, and we would receive new fees, it's still going to go through the same process. So the only difference is really the fees coming into our department. It would make no difference to the noticing or the public hearing process that is visible to the public. It's really just the fees associated with it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Marshall.
Claudia, would that,
Yeah.
would it make a difference as to which master plan it would come under? I mean, if I'm reading right, this one
No,
is.
I believe if they came in March of last year, they're under Reimagine Reno. They're already under the new master plan.
Okay, maybe I read something else.
I believe
That's not the way the staff report's written.
if they came in March, I'll have Brooke come up.
Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner for the record. This did come in March. That was prior to the final adoption of Reimagine Reno.
Before
And it did come in.
regional.
So it was considered under the previous master plan.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the table. Had some discussion. Any additional comments? All those in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
So I have 5 commissioners in favor and 1 commissioner opposed. Commissioner Marshall opposed. So with that, we have continued the project, and we will rely on the applicant and staff to determine what their next step will be. And I would like to thank everybody for coming out. I understand that it's a long evening for all of you. We don't know what's going to be coming back. We know that the project as presented, they do not wish to move forward with it under the current situation. So we will wait to see what happens on the way back. We do have some additional business on here, so I will ask that any conversations that you have occur in the back of the room. If you have questions about the process, please contact Brooke Oswald, who is the planner on this, who can give you a little bit more information about what the next steps are going to be. I can't just answer questions up here at the dais. Okay, I'm going to take a brief moment before we move on to our next item. We'll let the room clear. Again, please, we have some more items on our agenda, so if you can take the conversations out to the hallway, we would appreciate it.
Can you say it again?
Okay. They're moving. It's a little clogged at the door, Michelle. Okay. Again, please take the conversations outside. We're just finishing up our meeting. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, item number 9, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report. Commissioner Hawkins.
We're still working on the regional plan. Last week, we met at the South Library and discussed projects of regional significance for Washoe County School District. Both gentlemen were there, and I can't remember their names. We spoke with 2 gentlemen from Washoe County. One was
Pete Eckhart and Adam Searcy from the school district.
trying to determine what the population of a school would be that would cause something to go into the project of regional significance. And we're still working on that.
Thank you. Item number 10, staff announcements.
Okay, at the actions by City Council at the last meeting, we had the Stead North Virginia zone change was approved. That was going from MU and VTC to IC. So that was a recommendation by you, upheld by City Council. And there was also a review of the Eddy. They were required to come in annually to review their special use permit. And this time, City Council increased their capacity from 350 to 500. Per fire code, the overall allowed capacity is, I think, 585, something like that. So they're up to 500 now. They extended the hours of operation on Friday and Saturday nights to 2 a.m. And City Council asked that they come back for a review in 6 months this time rather than the annual review. And then it was approved with those modifications. That's all I have.
Thank you. Item number 11, Commissioner's suggestions for future agenda items.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gower, I'd like to request that the draft climate action plan that is complete by the City of Reno come to the Planning Commission at our April 3rd meeting for our review and provision of recommendations to City Council.
Okay. I would agree with that as a request. Additional requests. Commissioner Marshall.
Claudia, I don't know if this is the right way to put this request in, but just, I saw the condition, now it's kind of, I think, turning into a standard condition of the trip reduction plan, or, I don't know if that's, it seemed a little bare. And I don't know whether or not it would be worthwhile having a discussion about what, so I don't have to inquire each time as to what that actually means and what are the elements associated with that, that we might have a little broader discussion as just a general item as opposed to holding up a particular project on that. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Commissioners, anything else? Okay, moving on to item number 12, public comment. This item is for either public comment in any action item or for any general public comment. Michelle, do we have any requests to speak on this?
I don't, but
Is there anyone in the audience who would care to make public comment under this item? Okay.
no.
With that, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission for item 13, looking for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.